Okay, hopefully you can all see and hear me right now. Yep, awesome, thank you. Hi everyone, my name is Brandon. I'm a solutions engineer at Plotly. I'll be your host for today's webinar using Excel to generate online dashboards in Plotly. So a brief overview of what we're going to do today. We're going to take an Excel spreadsheet from a desktop. We're going to upload that into a Plotly account. And then from there, we're going to create and style some interactive charts in the Chart Studio. And then we're going to embed those into a styled dashboard and then have a look at how to share those with peers and colleagues. But before we dive into that, just a few items of housekeeping to go over. So I'm just going to dive straight into that, and I'm just going to share my screen with you. So come back. So hopefully you can all see my screen now and not my head. Yeah, okay, thank you. All right, so first I've just got to open the Crowdcast page. So if you're new or you weren't aware, we've done a few of these webinars now. These are building dashboards in R or Python or Dash or the introduction to the Falcon SQL client. So if you haven't already, definitely jump on and watch those. Concerning the future, we're going to be running more of these webinars in the new year. So if you want to stay informed about the upcoming schedule, I recommend following or subscribing to this channel. And also, like the previous ones, today's session is being recorded. So you'll be able to watch this again afterwards if you like. And you can access that here on the Crowdcast page or on Plotly's webinars webpage, which I think is just /webinars. The next item I wanted to quickly talk about was an exciting one. We just recently announced, I think Monday, that we're going to be hosting another series of workshops. This time they're going to be at our headquarters in Montreal, Canada. And they'll take place on consecutive weekends from February across March. And they'll be in Python Dash, SQL and dashboards, and R, the Plotly R package, Shiny, and Dash R package. Perhaps most pertinent for this crowd might be the SQL and dashboards. This is more a kind of non-coding, looking at modern data warehouse options and data visualization best practices, with a bit of introduction to SQL queries with the Falcon SQL client. So if you're interested, jump onto the PlotCon URL and have a good read over it. And the last housekeeping item I wanted to mention was, if you stick around to the end, which I hope you do, we're going to share a written up tutorial at the end, and that's going to have a step-by-step instructions of how to replicate what we've done today, what we're going to do today. So with that, I think we'll just jump straight into it. All right. So what we're going to do today, and what we're going to achieve, is we're going to take this standard Excel spreadsheet, the standard Excel data. This is pretty clean and organized already and structured. So what we're going to do is take this and turn it into this. So these three maps, well, that map, sorry, the scatter plot and the table. And we're going to do all this in the next 20 to 25 minutes. So we might as well get started. So I'll just go to my desktop. You can see that I've got a Excel file here. It's a CSV. But what I want to do is I want to bring that into my Plotly account. So I'm just going to go to my home folder, which is the organize /home. And you can see here, this is the home folder interface. I go all my files here and my folder and subfolder on the left-hand side to navigate. Right now, we're just going to bring in that data set. So what we're going to do is go to the top right-hand side to create, and we're just going to click data set. And you can just upload it. You can drag and drop, but I'm just going to go straight for upload here. There we go, so it's uploading, success, always good to see. And you can see there, it just uploads right in pole position. And when you can just click, when you hover over it, you can just click view, just to make sure it's there. So we'll click my files to go back. And yeah, we're just gonna jump straight into making our first map, because we've got a fair few to get through here. So just click Edit to open this data set into the Chart Studio. And this brings you to the Chart Studio interface. And you can see here at the top, we've got the grid. At the bottom, this is going to be where our plot's going to come up. And off to the side, we've got all our options and things that we can do. Like I said, the data set was pretty clean. So when we read it in, you can see the headers are already there. If you wanted to manipulate this at all, you just click that little icon and you can rename headers, sort, you can do remove and insert columns, and then you've got a bunch of functions down here that you can change around in the grid as well. But we won't worry about those. So I'll go through this as I make the plot. So we'll get started. So I'll click chart type. This is going to bring up our chart options. You see there's a fair few there. So what I'm going to do is go to core left. You can see when I hover over it, there's these little icons on this side, right-hand side. And the bottom one is going to open a basic example here in the Chart Studio. This one's going to take you to a tutorial if you want to run through it. And then this one's going to show up other charts made by users that have been saved publicly. So we're just going to click core left, and that's going to update this over here. I'll just scroll down so you get a better view. So now we need to enter our trace values. So we're just going to click that drop down, and we're going to select country for our locations, and for our values, I'm just going to get happiness score. There we go. You can see the data didn't populate yet, and that's because the location format is set to ISO3, which is an abbreviation of a country. So we're just going to change that to country names. There we go. I'm just going to leave the map region as world and the projection as distance preserving for now. Something I didn't mention, actually, is that this data set is across 3 years. It's the World Happiness data set. And I've got 3 years of data, so 2015, 16, and 17. And what that means is that I've got multiple entries for each country. So to get the correct representation, I'm going to have to perform an aggregation. You do that just by clicking Aggregate, and then clicking the blue Aggregate button to add one. All right, now to aggregate, I'm just going to group that by country, and I'm going to perform the aggregation on the happiness score variable. And then in the Z value, I can pick here what type of aggregation. I'm just going to take the average over those 3 years. Scroll down a bit again. There you go. So that's our data sorted. So now we can move on to styling the trace. So when you click Style and Trace, this is the area where you can actually style the data itself. With the map, we're just going to do the color scale. I'm not a fan of the red one, so I'm going to pick something a little happier and brighter. There we go. So with the color scale, you can pick from these pre-selected ones. You can do normal or reversed. We'll stick with normal for now. And you have the ability to show and hide this color bar on the right-hand side. We'll keep it. For this one, you can also customize the range there as well. So moving on to the layout. So that's pretty much the data style. So now we're going to do the layout of the actual plot itself. So the style we set here in this plot is kind of going to be what we carry through to the rest of the plots and also our dashboard. Do that. There we go. So I'm just going to set a dark theme for our background. I'm not going to worry about titles and fonts because there's not too much in here. And because we're embedding this into a dashboard, I'm just going to push the actual plot itself right out and make sure that there's no margins. So I'm just going to put those to 0. You can just see it updating as I go. All right, and then we have geo style and geo layout, which is where you do most of your map customization. So I'm just going to click show on land. You'll see them come up. I'm just going to merge them into the background. That way we can just set this all to dark and just focus on the data itself. And I'm going to do the same again for oceans. And you can see when I click color, it just brings up this little box here, and you can just enter in the color code. Same again with countries, and I'm just going to hide that frame because we're not going to need that. So then geo layout, This is where you have the scope and projection and resolution. You can also change your zoom. I might just change that actually. I might put that to a different projection. There we go. You can see now that I've actually missed something as I was going through. So sometimes what I like to do is I just go down to this JSON tab, click that, and you can see here all your attributes come up. So I was in layout, geo. Sometimes once you know how to navigate the Plotly object, this is pretty easy to use, extremely useful. There we go. And one last thing we wanted to do is we've lost the font here because I made that dark theme. So I'm just going to go to color bars and I'll go to labels. I'm just going to change that typeface and I'm just going to change that font color to white. Oh, there you go. See, it comes back out. So there's a fair bit you can do here too, actually. You can do size and positioning and borders and backgrounds on that color bar. But we're just going to leave it and keep it pretty simple today. Some other ones I'm not using right now is the ability to throw in some annotations. Also, you can customize axes. We'll do a bit of that in the scatter plot next anyway. Same with legend. You can customize a legend, but we don't have one today. And images and mobile. So images, you can just add in an image. So if you want a company logo up in the top left-hand side, you can add in an image. And mobile is for creating mobile-friendly views of the plot, which is really useful if you're putting it into a blog or anything like that. But we'll keep it focused on the dashboard today. So pretty happy with that. So once you've finished, you're just going to come over to the Save button here on the left-hand side. Click that, and you're going to get the little pop-up menu. So this is where you're going to set the privacy of your plot. So you have three options. So private, which is only visible to yourself and no one else. So only you and inside your account can see that. The next level would be private link. Now that's going to be private unless you share the link. And what that means is it's going to be a link with a appended share key. And it's going to be unique, so it'll still be private. But if you share that unique URL with anyone, they'll be able to see the plot. And public, that's pretty self-explanatory. That's public to everyone, and it'll also be in search feeds. And I'm going to leave this as public for now. And I'm also just going to title the plot. I'm going to call this Happy Map. And just click Save. There we go. So that's all saved now. So we've completed that one. So go back and check that it's in the home folder. Just go up to the right-hand side, click My Files. There we go, and you can see it's loaded into pole position again. And again, when I hover over it, like we did with the data set before, you can actually view this. There you go, you can see your finished product. And you can also just check the data behind it too. So, as I said, we want to create a few plots here. So I'm going to jump back in and make a scatter plot now. And I want to create it from that same data set. So exactly the same as before. I'm just going to hover over that data set, click Edit, and that's going to open the Chart Studio again. There we go. And I'm just going to jump straight back into it with another plot. I'm going to click Chart Type and Scatter Plot. It was selected by default, but it's a habit. All right, and now I'm just going to put in the trace values. Just scroll back down there. So this time on the x-axis, I'm going to go country, and on the y-axis, I'm going to do GDP per capita. But I'm going to size these markers by happiness score, and I'm going to color them by happiness score too. There we go. Same as before, we need to aggregate the data because we've got those multiple entries. So group by country, but the trace this time is going to be the economy GDP per capita. And what we're going to do here is we're going to put the average on the Y value, average on the marker size. You can see the changes happening as I go along here. There we go. So that's our data sorted. We're just going to move on to styling. So style traces, and we're going to change the data itself here. Again, color scale, we're going to keep with that theme. We're going to hide the color bar this time. And you'll notice here in the scatter plot, we've got the actual scatter points that we can customize. So what I'm going to do is just change the opacity a little bit. And also I'm going to reduce the size of these by minimizing the maximum size. I'm just going to make that 30. You can see the point's a bit smaller now. And then you can do border width and colors and stuff like that. And you can also change the symbols, but I will leave that for now. And also I'll leave the border color because we're going to change that background. We're going to make it a bit darker, which we'll go and do right now. So again, layout, and that's where you're going to set the background. So notice this time we have plot background and margin color. So if I change the plot background to that darker thing, you see it just changes the inner plot area, and the margin itself still stayed white. We'll get rid of that. There we go. But you notice now that the axes labels have disappeared. So what we'll do next is go to title and fonts, and down the bottom we have global font. I'm just going to set that to white. That way it pops back out. There we go. And just like before, we want to do the margins, but this time when we do the margins, we want to account for the x-axis and the y-axis. So I'm just going to pop that in there. I think 120 should probably do it for the bottom. We'll leave 80 as the default. And for the right-hand side, we'll just put it to 0. There we go. So what we didn't have last time in the choropleth, we do this time the axes tab. And this is where we're going to do this whole area here, the X and Y axis. So first, we'll start with titles. So there's a couple ways to do this. Should move that a little bit. Yeah, you can do it in the text box here or directly in the plot itself. Also, when you are customizing it in the actual text box up here, you can do it in rich text or you can do it in HTML. But we'll stick with that. Well, actually, I'll do this time is just directly on the plot. And then same here, you'll see like that. You can just edit it directly in. There we go. So that'll do for the titles. So just keep the y-axis. I won't worry about one of the x. It's pretty self-explanatory with the country names down there. Next up is range. We won't change it, but you do have the option to be able to do log scale, as you can see, but I'm just going to leave it as linear. And lines. So I'll just pop the grid lines. You can do the grid lines by x-axis or y-axis, or you can do it both at the same time with all. I'll just bring them out so you can see them there. But we're not going to use them. We're going to keep it pretty minimal. We'll keep it that minimal theme today. So I'm just going to hide all the options. All right, so next we have tick labels, and that's your country names and then the labels here on the y-axis as well. So what I'm going to do is, because there's lots of names down the bottom, I'm just going to make that font a bit smaller on the x-axis. Just like that. You can see there's other options here, but I'm not going to go into too much detail. And the last thing we want to do in the axes is go to zoom interactivity, click all, and disable. And what that's going to do is facilitate the use of the cross-filter feature, which we're going to use in our dashboard afterwards. So that about does it for the scatter plot. Something you might have noticed on the left-hand side here is shapes. That wasn't there before. And that's the ability to add in vertical lines and bands and things like that if you really want to highlight a certain area of data. You can do that over here on the left-hand side with your attributes and options that you have, or you can just actually do it straight directly on the plot itself, but we don't need one today. So like before, click save when you're done. For me, I'm going to set it to public, and I'm going to name this one Happy Scatter. And done again. So same as before, up to the top right-hand corner, click My Files, and you should see it again in that little first spot there. And same as before, you can just quickly view it. Pretty happy with that. All right. So I'm just going to dive straight back in. So again, on that same data set, I'm going to click Edit. Right, and back to the Chart Studio. This one's going to be quick, and I picked it because it's a little bit different. We're going to go to the statistics column and pick table. And then what I'm going to do is I'm not going to use all the data here. I only want to use kind of the relevant data that we've actually plotted. So I'm going to go to a vacant column, and I'm going to type in some header names. So year, country. What else did I have? Happiness, rank. I don't have that, but I'm going to add it in. Happiness score and GDP per capita. All right, and then you can just rename that header. You don't have to, but might as well while I'm here. All right, and then over to the trace values. I'm just going to add in that column I just created. You'll see it appear right there. Now, to populate the actual table itself, we're going to select those columns we just added. So year, country, happiness rank, happiness score, and GDP per cap. All right, so now you can see you've got a scrollable table. Excellent. So some other things you can do here is you can actually create, you can set the color by variable for both header and cells. And you can also do the column width, but we're not going to worry about that. We're just going to move straight on to styling the table we have. I'm going to do that by style, traces. And you'll see here you can style the header and the cells separately. We're just going to keep with that same theme, that dark theme. So we're going to make the background dark, change the font, make the font a bit bigger, not that we can see it right now. And I'll just make that white. I'll do the same for the border color as well. There we go. And same again for the cells. There we go. And the border color, that kind of looks nice, doesn't it? And then we'll just change that to white. There we go. So like we did before, we're just going to go to layout. Because we're putting it in the dashboard, we're just going to set that background on the margin. And we're going to use the margins. Again, we're going to push it right out. With tables, I like to leave a little bit of a margin just to make it a bit more distinguished. All right, so I'm happy with that. So again, clicking save. Public for me, and happy table. All right, so that's our charts and table done. So again, back to the home folder. So you can see that happy map, happy scatter, happy table, and the data set. So if I click view on data set, when I go to sources, you should see the three charts we've created here. So you can see that they're all linked, and you can click on them to take you to them. I won't worry about that right now though. All right, so we've got our charts, our table, and now we're going to create a dashboard. So same as before, we're going to go up to the right-hand side on create, hover that, and then click dashboard. All right, so that brings us to the dashboard interface. So straight away, you have the option of adding a plot, a text box, or a web page. We're just going to stick with plots today, so I'm going to click that. And then you can add your plot by URL or by clicking your files, which will bring up your home folder. So we'll just add them in the same order we made them. So we had the map first. You can see it just adds straight in there. And what I'm going to do is just resize that. I'm just going to hover over that, click, and drag it down. Just that little bit further. All right, and then to add the next one, you have your options in the bottom left-hand side here. So I'm just going to click plot again, and then I'm just going to scroll down. So it's just going to add straight at the bottom. Click your files, same thing again. I'm going to click happy scatter. And that's added in there. And again, same thing. I'm just going to resize that a little bit. Oops, it's not scrolling now. There we go. And the last one, again, plot your files, and I add in that table. So you can see it's pretty simple to add these plots in. It's pretty quick as well. So I've been pretty simple here and just left it as like a plot, like one plot, one row. If you wanted 2 rows and the second row being 2 columns, you just simply grab this table and you would drag it up there, and you can see where I'm hovering, it would just add that in there. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to keep it simple. So our plots are in. We want our title. So we had, what was it, average happiness by country. Average GDP per capita. Ugh. Sorry. All right. And there we go. So we got our plot and title. So let's get on to styling it. So to do that, you just up the top here, hover over that little icon and click settings. So you can see now that the header option is already by default started, and we'll go through these one by one. So what we're going to do with title is just add in world happiness. The data set was 2015 to 17. Now we have the option of adding a logo via a URL. So you're just going to paste in a URL, and I'm just going to cheat and copy it straight from this one. You just see it just appears there. And also you have the ability to add a link, which is going to come up here with some text. So I'm just going to write data source. And same again, I'm just going to steal the link from here. There we go. So now your data source is linked in. And that's the header set. So we're going to move on to colors, which is really where you set the theme of your dashboard. We have that dark theme that's going on in our plots. So we're just going to continue that in the dashboard. We're going to set all that font to white. I'm being a little boring, but you can see that there's a page background and box background and border, the actual box border as well. So because you have all of those available, you can really play around with styles and themes here. Like I said, I'm being pretty basic. There we go. The next option is text. I don't have a text box in here, so this is where you'd really kind of customize that text box, but you also, these settings here will affect the actual header text. So I'm going to change the font family. I'm going to make the header size actually a lot larger, and then I'm just going to reduce the weight of it a little bit. There we go. So I'm pretty happy with that. So if you click layout, this is where you can decide whether or not you want a dashboard or a report. You can see the report's a lot thinner. You also have the ability at the end when we finish this to be able to print them. So that's where the report part comes in handy. But we're doing a dashboard today, so I'll stick with that. So last option is filter. And this is where you can add in a search bar if you like. So you can see it just added here. And what that does is allow you to search your data across all of your dashboard. But we won't worry about that one today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus on this one. I'm going to enable cross filter. It didn't look like anything happened, but you'll see soon enough. I'm going to close that. And that's our dashboard complete. We've just got one last important thing to do, and that's going to come down to this little blue button. Click save. And enter a file name. It's the same again with the privacy settings. I'm just leaving mine as public. So I'm just going to leave it as world happiness, the actual dashboard title. I'm going to click save. And you can see down here on the left-hand side, it says dashboard created successfully. All right, so just navigating straight back up to the top of the screen, I'm going to go over that icon again. And you can see now I have the ability to view and full window. So I'm just going to go straight to full window. And we have the dashboard, which you can see that I haven't done something right. So I'll jump back onto this one. So as you can see, we've got the choropleth, the scatter plot, and the table all in here. And the table is scrollable. And you can see also when you hover over the map and the data, you've got that hover info, which you can customize when you are making the plot itself, but we didn't go into detail today. And the next thing that I mentioned, we enabled cross filter. So if you're looking here at South America, you can see it's actually a little bit hard to tell the difference because they've got pretty similar values. So what you can do, simply select that area, and then that selected data is going to update. So you can see now that the color scale there is actually updated and it's a bit easier to read. But also when you scroll down, you can see that it's updated in the other plots as well. So you can see that the selected data stands out, the rest is faded to the back. And also the table's updated with just the selected data. And the last thing to talk about is also with these tables is that they're interactive in the sense that you can move the columns around. So if you wanted to see GDP per capita by country here, it's a bit annoying to look back and forth, so you could just drag that over, stick it in between, and it's a bit easier to read. All right. The last thing I should talk about, to get rid of cross filter, you're just going to double click, by the way. And that works the opposite way too. So if I just select it on this plot, it's going to update on the map. There you go. All right. So the last thing to quickly talk about is if I go over these little icons for each plot, you can actually open this plot, the plot itself directly in your own Chart Studio. So if I click that, it's going to open in the Chart Studio, and then I can just go into customizing it and save it myself. Or I can just isolate it by clicking View Plot, and I'll just view it like we did earlier. And also you have the ability to download the data. So if you click that, it's just going to download a CSV file of the data in this plot. So, and the last thing I want to go through quickly, if I click Exit, I go back to my home folder. You should see the dashboard again in that first position. And what we can do here is when we hover over it, you look in the bottom right-hand corner, we've got that share icon. If I click that, this little pop-up comes up. And if I click link and privacy, there's your shareable link. That URL, I've made it public, so all you have to do is copy and paste that to share your dashboard with peers and colleagues or anyone. If it was private link, like I said, it would be private, but then it would have this share key appended to it, and you would be able, anyone you share that actual share key with would be able to see it. Otherwise, it will remain private, and then private, there's no sharing. The last one I should say is you also have the ability to collaborate. So if you know someone's Plotly username, you can invite them, or you can otherwise use their email address. So with that, that pretty much concludes a bit of a plot and data, plot and dashboard blitz. So what I'll do is I think we'll just jump into questions now. So let me just kind of navigate back to the question screen. There we go. Sorry, it was frozen. All right, my question. Where? Okay. So I'm just trying to scroll up. Sorry, it's a bit jammed here. This probably because I've got this infinity. What I might do is just stop sharing my screen. Hopefully that helps.